Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 40 in our History Bite series. Today we will discuss the Battle of Long Island during the American Revolution, where George Washington avoided disaster and kept the patriot cause alive. New York played a pivotal role throughout the American Revolution, particularly early on. Its central position in the American colonies and its port made it vital to commerce and a key strategic location. After the British evacuated Boston on March 17, 1776, General George Washington guessed correctly that their next target would be New York. By mid-April, Washington had marched his 19,000 soldiers to Lower Manhattan. He strengthened the batteries that guarded the harbor and constructed forts in northern Manhattan and on Brooklyn Heights across the East River on Long Island. Discipline was sorely lacking among the Americans, many of whom had never been so far from home and had never served in a professional military. They were awed by the arrival of the British fleet. One man remarked that it looked like, quote, all London afloat. In early July, 400 British ships with 32,000 men commanded by General William Howe arrived at Staten Island. When Howe offered a pardon to the rebels, Washington answered, quote, those who have committed no fault want no pardon. While he was still convinced that the British would attack Manhattan, he sent more troops to Brooklyn. Washington placed General Israel Putnam in charge of Brooklyn Heights and stationed General John Sullivan to the south and Lord Stirling to the southwest on the heights of Gowan. He posted guards along the main roads leading through the heights, but failed to secure the rarely used Jamaica Pass to the east. This proved to be a costly mistake since General Howe planned to lead 10,000 men through the pass on the evening of August 26th and attack the Americans on Brooklyn Heights from the rear. At the same time, General Leopold Philipp von Heister would launch his Hessians against Sullivan's troops, while the Redcoats of General James Grant would attack Stirling's position. Early on the morning of August 27th, British soldiers fired on American pickets stationed near the Red Lion Tavern at a crossroads in Brooklyn. Washington hurried across the East River from Manhattan, but could do little more than observe the fight from a redoubt on Cobble Hill. Sullivan's men fought bravely but were cut down by Hessian artillery and bayonets. When he realized that the main British force had come through the Jamaica Pass and would soon surround him, Sullivan ordered his men to retreat to Brooklyn Heights before he himself was captured. As the Americans pulled back towards Brooklyn Heights, one contingent was nearly surrounded by the onrushing British. About 400 Maryland soldiers, now known as the Maryland 400, countercharged to buy time for their comrades to escape. More than 250 Marylanders were killed as they fought desperately against the British legions, but the rest of the army managed to retreat safely. General Howe halted the fighting by the early afternoon and directed his men to dig trenches around the American position on the next day. Before they could be surrounded, Washington ordered his men to evacuate Long Island. From late in the evening of August 29th to dawn on the following morning, Washington watched as 9,000 Continentals were rowed back to Manhattan. As the sun came up, a fog miraculously descended on the remaining men crossing the river, concealing the Continentals in the boats. According to eyewitnesses, George Washington was the last man to leave Brooklyn. Despite his tactical defeat and 2,000 casualties compared to the 388 casualties on the British side, Washington scored strategic points by keeping his army intact, but many Continental soldiers were imprisoned on British prison ships in New York Harbor, where they suffered under horrible conditions. New York City was lost, and the British held it for the remainder of the war. When the United States finally regained control of the city in 1783, the fledgling government wasted no time in fortifying New York Harbor. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time.